Hi there, it's Catherine from 3Ps. Thank you for joining me. This video is about know your diet type, and this is based on the advice from our nutritionist Maia Lloyd. If you didn't know already, we've got a diet series just launched which is called Weight Loss Clinic Secrets and Recipes, eating clean but keep it lean, and I'll put a link up on this video and in the notes to those books. But I wanted to talk specifically today about knowing your diet type, and by that I mean knowing what type of eater you are, because with any diet, the success in terms of you getting lean and losing weight is understanding what your triggers are and therefore being able to plan for them. So I had a long chat with Maia about that, and about and what came out of that conversation was this idea that there are different types of eaters, and you are one of these types, or you may be a mixture of more than one. But if you understand the type of eater you are, then you can adjust your diet to actually make it easier and more likely that you'll succeed. So I've got some notes which I want to look at, and I'm just going to talk about how this might help you in your own attempts or your own plan to shape up or lean up for summer. So the first type of eater or dieter we have is, okay, number one is the sort of person who has real problems with impulse control. And by that I mean someone who, they say, I saw that muffin and I just had to eat it, or that piece of cake was calling to me or talking to me. It's that type of person who, when they feel the urge to have something, they can't stop themselves. Now, to some extent, this should be something that you grow out of as you get older, but it doesn't happen to everybody, and some people have naturally stronger impulse controls than others. So if we accept the fact that no one's perfect, and that you might well have that, that type of eating issue, that you just, if there are bad things around that are not going to help your weight loss, you're going to eat them. The first thing obviously to make sure is that you go through your cupboards and you take out things that are a temptation. Now, if you're at home, either you're a teenager or you're living with your family, or you're someone who's got your own children, it's obviously quite difficult to have because there'll be food around. Well, the first thing I would say is you need to get your family on board, and they need to support you. And so that if that means they take bad things out of the fridge, then so be it. At least put them somewhere you can't reach. I'm only 5'1", so putting things in tall cupboards is pretty good for me because I can't even see them. But in terms of anyone of a more average height, then think about other ways to just take temptation out of the way. The second thing about impulse control is it's often linked to anxiety, so it's often linked to a feeling of need and neediness, and so you need to think about other ways that you can satisfy that impulse of I want. And one of the great ways to satisfy that is actually through exercise, because what exercise does is it suppresses your appetite, particularly just after exercise. So, presumably if you're watching this channel, you will be interested in fitness, and you will either be a regular exerciser or you'll be thinking about becoming a regular exerciser. I would strongly suggest that if you are someone who has a problem with impulse control, that you think about including some exercise or upping the level of your exercise so that you feel overall less hungry and you feel calmer, because that will really help with the muffin spoke to me and I had to eat it. The other thing that that Maia talked about was relaxation. So again, it's to do with the neediness that comes from impulse. Now, why can't you resist an impulse? Generally speaking, the reason you can't is because it speaks to you from somewhere deeper than simply I'm hungry. It speaks to you from an emotional level, from a level of, there's some other need, an underlying need. Now, I'm not suggesting that you get into psychotherapy or that you get, deep at this stage. You are looking simply to lean up for summer, but you need to recognise that even if you have that muffin, that's not actually going to sate whatever is the need underneath. And that one way that you can probably calm those thoughts is to relax. And a great way to relax is to try meditation or guided meditation. If you've never tried meditation before, you don't have to become a yogi and go to India. You can, if you go onto onto YouTube, for example, and just plug in guided meditation, you will find some great guided meditations. I'll put in the notes to this video and probably up on a message on the screen a couple of recommendations for guided meditations. I find them tremendously helpful. If I can feel myself having had a very busy day, I'm feeling very, very tired, and I know that I just need to just chill out, I can just put my headphones on for 20 minutes and it makes a huge difference. It shifts my state, so I go from being maybe anxious or stressed to feeling much more relaxed. And if you're someone who suffers from impulse control issues, it will shift you from I really need to have that muffin, to feeling much more relaxed. So rather than reaching for the muffin, reach for the headphones. Okay, so that's the first type of dieter we're talking about, someone who has a problem with impulse control, and those are the recommendations from our nutritionist Maia Lloyd about that. The second type of dieter we were talking about was the grazer. That's someone who, you know, always has a piece of food in their hand, food in their bag. You know, they always feel the need to have food around. A classic example of that is I have 4 children, and one of them, my youngest son, Achilles, yeah, they've all got superhero names. Achilles is never happier than actually when he's got food in both hands. And when he was really small, what he used to do is he would have food in both hands, and then in order to eat, because he had no free hands, he would actually dip his mouth into his food, which is rather extreme. But he's, you know, when he gets older, he may well be one of those people who likes to graze. He's got a twin sister who doesn't do that at all. She very much, she eats at regular meal times, but doesn't want to eat between. So, you know, everyone's different. But if you recognise the fact that you are a grazer, then the first thing to say about that is, and this is from our nutritionist Maia, is make sure that you have the right types of food around. So if you feel the need to graze, rather than grazing on things which are not going to help your weight loss, think about things that you can graze on. If you look at Maia's book on snacks, and again I'll put the link up for you on the screen in the notes, that's got some really good healthy leaning type of snacks that you can have, and they fall broadly into 2 categories. They are sort of protein type dips that you would have with vegetables, so that's a great thing to have, say, mid-afternoon, or flavoured spiced up nuts and seeds. I travel quite a lot, and I always have some nuts and seeds with me, and I find those, because they're savoury and they're slightly salty, they're really good for feeling that you've had something that's quite snacky to eat when you're in the mood for that, and it avoids you going for things like crisps, which obviously are not a good idea if you're trying to lean up. So if you're a grazer, the first thing to think about is make sure that you pre-plan and make sure you have with you the right type of food. The second thing that Maia said about if you are a snacker or a grazer is to think about chewing gum. So if you feel the need to, you know, particularly if you use food to calm yourself, because you graze because you want to calm yourself, then try chewing gum. Obviously go for a sugar-free gum. Anything with xylitol, which is a sweetener that you find in sugar-free gum, is fine, and you can just chew that regularly. That's a great way to keep yourself busy if you feel the urge to graze and it's not actually a meal time. So think about chewing gum. Be careful that doesn't become a habit, of course, and you need to at some point accept the fact that sometimes you're not going to be eating. But actually having some gum in those moments where you really want something is a great alternative to actually having a snack. The next thing she said was that, again, you should look at relaxation in the same way as if you're an impulse control person. If you are a grazer, particularly if you're grazing to try to keep calm, then try relaxation. Again, guided meditation. I'll put up again the link here for a couple of guided meditations. Try that. You may find that actually removes your urge to have something to eat. So it's a good alternative. Distraction is a great antidote to a craving. So if you crave something to eat, try distraction. A good one is, as I said, is meditation or relaxation as a way to do an alternative to eating. And then the last thing she said, was to keep your hands busy. So if actually it's all about having something to do, you know, you're either going to feed your face or do something else. Do something else. Don't just sit around. Find something to do. Take up a hobby. It could be anything. It could be, you know, anything from, you know, woodwork, more sport. Obviously, I'm a great fan of sport. It could be volunteering somewhere. Try not to sit with big lengths of time when you're going to think about food. Find other things to do. The overall message, and I think of all of the books that we've done in this series, is this idea that food should not be your number one priority, and it should not be the most important thing in your life. You need to relegate food to its proper place, which is it's social, it's sustaining, it's health giving, it's to enable you to live in an optimum way, but it cannot be your number one priority, and it cannot be your number one relationship. So get outside, do something, find something else to do, but don't obsess about food. Okay, so that's what Maia said in relation to people who graze. Now the third type of eater and dieter, if you're looking at what, you know, where you might slot into this, is the classic comfort eater. So it's someone who you know, feels down, feels in need of, you know, a hug or reassurance or love or, you know, sort of some sort of hug basically, you comfort eat. Now that's you know, most of you, if you are a comfort eater, you will recognise that, because that's something that when you feel emotional, you have an urge to eat. It's interesting because some people are the opposite. I mean, for example, if I'm stressed, I don't want to eat, but a lot of people when they're stressed do want to eat. You know, either way, you're being triggered by emotion. The first thing to recognise if you are an emotional or a comfort eater is that an emotion is an emotion and it's not appetite. Now, you may say, that's not necessarily helpful. I know that already. Doesn't stop me eating. But it's worth just recognising that if you can, that that's about emotion, not about hunger. There's a different type of hunger. There's a great episode of The Simpsons where Lisa comes to her mum, Marge, and she's playing her blues trumpet, and she says to her mother, I feel really, really sad. I feel really, really bleak. What should I do? And Marge says to her, just take that feeling, screw it into a tiny little ball and force it as far down as you possibly can, which is a classic example of people who internalise their emotions, push it way, way down, and then when those emotions bubble up, they don't want to acknowledge the emotion. Instead, they use food as a way to try again to force that emotion down. And part of successful weight loss, if you are a comfort eater, is acknowledging that you have emotions that maybe are uncomfortable and trying to find other ways to express them and not force them away again, and not use food to force them away. There are some great social networks and communities online where you can, you know, things like Overeaters Anonymous, where you can get with a community that has similar issues, who really understands that. And one of the things that I would say about any form of weight loss, and I think Maia would agree, would be that if you can get community support and accountability, that is a really great way to really fire up your weight loss to make sure that you achieve your goal. So if you are the sort of person who you think you maybe need a hug, you need some support, you need emotional support in particular, I strongly suggest you look at going into one of the weight loss communities that are online. They are, you know, they've absolutely blossomed with the growth of social networks, so they're a brilliant way now to get support. Okay, the next thing in relation to being a comfort eater is to find other coping mechanisms. So let's recognise the fact that you use food as a coping mechanism. Let's recognise the fact that that's actually not a bad strategy. If you're feeling bad, you want to find a way to feel better. There's nothing wrong with that. The issue is if you use food as a coping strategy and it becomes unhealthy because you're carrying extra weight, or you're you know, putting yourself at risk, for example, for that diabetes because you have a very high sugar diet. That's a coping strategy, but it's not the best coping strategy. But it's a strategy, and it shows that you're a person of action. You should acknowledge and accept that that's a good thing, but just switch your coping strategy. So rather than using food when you feel a trigger, find other things that you can use. So exercise, again, is a great one as an alternative to food. And a lot of people who, when they start to take control of their diet, you know, find that if they take food away, they feel almost like a grief process. You know, what if I haven't got my donuts, I haven't got my chocolate, what am I going to do? Replace it with something else. Don't just take food away and, you know, don't just kick the crutch away of food and then think, I'm going to be okay. Think about other things that you can do instead. So exercise is a classic. You know, take something up that's social. You know, it doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be, you know, heavy weights in the gym. It can be just a Zumba class. I mean, Lorraine Kelly, who's a breakfast presenter in the UK, very, very well known, very well liked. You know, she has finally conquered her weight and got to a weight that she's really happy with. And she's done it through going to Zumba classes, because she is naturally an extrovert and naturally a very social person. So she's not someone who's going to pound it out on the treadmill, but she's really, really enjoyed the social side of exercise. So if you are someone who needs social, think about creating opportunities to be social with exercise, because it's a great way to satisfy two needs at once: your emotional need for connection and your need to release good hormones, happy hormones, to calm yourself down so that you're not comfort eating so much. Okay, so that's your comfort eating type. Let's talk about the next one, which is the people who say, I just have no willpower. I just can't diet. I come off the wagon within a week. You know, I'm a failure. I try, but I just don't have any willpower. Okay, so that's your fourth type of eater or dieter. Now, it's very much linked, obviously, to impulse control, but it's more of a fatalist, a defeatist way of being. And it's very difficult, obviously, to pull yourself out of that sort of fatalistic view. And some of that is to do with how you are as a person and how you know, greet challenges in life. there's a really good book by an author called Charles Duhigg. It's quite new, and it's called, I think it's called Better, Faster, Stronger, or something similar. I'll put the link up on this video. I'll put it in the notes. That talks about motivation. There's a good chapter in it on motivation. It talks about the difference between external motivation and internal motivation. And external motivation is when other people tell you what to do. Internal motivation is self-motivation, which is I want to do, I want to change, I want to achieve. And how do you trigger that? How do you trigger yourself in self-motivation? Well, the first thing that the research tells us is that self-motivation comes from things not being easy, things being hard. That may sound quite counterintuitive. You know, if you're naturally good at things, then you should be motivated. But actually what they find is that motivating someone, people feel a better sense of achievement if something was hard. At the moment, I've got a trampoline at home with my kids, and one of my sons is quite athletic like me, and he has been learning to do front flips, and I've been doing it with him, and I'm almost there. I can flip, but I can't land on my feet yet, but I'm trying, and I know that when I achieve that front flip, I will feel fantastic that I've done that. You know, I can already run, I can already pump iron, and obviously I do that as part of my fitness regime, but doing that front flip is a great way to feel that I've achieved something. So let's take that back to a dieting scenario. How do you self-motivate? You look at small goals. You look at your big hairy goal, which is, you know, whatever it may, lose 5 kilos, lose 10 kilos, you know, get into your skinny jeans, you know, whatever it may be. And then break it down into smaller goals that you can achieve. You give yourself pats on the back as you go along. So if you had a goal of, say, lose 10 kilos, you know, maybe that's to do that within 3 months, for example, then you might want to say, well, my goal for this week is not to eat any chocolate and to lose, say, half a kilo. I mean, that may sound a small goal, but the point is it's to achieve it. So you commit to achieve it. With every small goal you achieve, the bigger goal gets closer, and you also gain confidence and self-motivation that you can actually achieve. So if you have a willpower issue, break the goal down into smaller portions that look manageable and try to self-motivate. The other thing about self-motivation, which I thought was that I wanted to talk about was, and this is my own personal view, which is that self-motivation or willpower, I think that all of us have a finite amount of that. And the reason I think that is, if you look at, for example, those of us who go to jail, a lot of them are in the most amazing physical shape. And why is that? Why are they able to get in that physical shape? The point is, when you are in jail, most of your free will is taken away. You know, what time lights go out is not in your will. What time you eat is not in your will. What you eat is not in your will. What work you do, if you do any in jail, and when you go to work, is not in your will. So your personal pot of self-control is completely preserved. And only in areas where you have any ability to use your self-control or your willpower, you've got basically a mass of it ready to be used. And in jail, often one of the only areas where you can exercise any modicum of decision or choice about effort is around fitness, and if there's a gym in jail. And so you'll find that people get into amazing shape in jail because actually they've got all this willpower ready to go. Now, if we take that out of the jail situation and put people back into normal life, you're making decisions all day. You're having to exercise willpower all day from the start. When you wake up in the morning and your alarm goes off, am I going to get up now? Yes, I'm going to get up now. There's your first exercise of willpower. The next is, what am I going to have for breakfast? Am I going to have a sugary cereal? Am I going to have some eggs? Exercise and willpower, decision made, and so on and so on and so on all day. That makes it quite difficult when it comes to adding extra to your load, like I'm going to lose some weight, to actually find the willpower for that. And my recommendation is that you find areas that you can abdicate responsibility from. So you free up some willpower from elsewhere in your life. So, for example, if you are looking to lose weight, then look at, for example, how your load of the cooking or the cleaning. Is there a period where you can just simply say, I'm not going to do that for a while? That's why things like the Diet Chef and those type of deliver to your door regimes work quite well, because you don't have to exercise additional willpower to buy and cook the food. You just have to eat it. Well, I'm suggesting you don't have to do a Diet Chef and have it delivered to your door, but you need to find a way that you're not having to add to your load of willpower. So think about other areas. So for example, at work, is there a way that you could ease the load for a while you concentrate on losing weight? At home, is there a way that people in the family could help you? So for example, you're doing fewer of the school pickups, or you're doing less of the homework, whatever it may be. It does bring me back to the importance of getting your family on board. And you may be in a situation your family aren't on board. I'll tell you a story about my family. When I was 11 or 12, my mother, who had been a lawyer but had given up to have her children, she had 5, decided to go back to university to do a second degree in sociology, and she was a mature student. And nothing was said, but all the kids were very well aware that my father had opposed that. And the reason that we knew was because he made it very difficult for her, particularly around things like studying. So she had no proper place to study. She used to study almost on the edge of the kitchen table. But my mother had so much need to educate herself and need to use her brain stored up. She didn't care. She continued to study even in those situations, because for so long she had been, I don't want to say trapped at home, but I think to some extent she did feel a bit of that. But she felt that she hadn't been able to exercise self-determination and use that part of her brain that's about education. And so when she got the chance, she absolutely went for it. Now, she, in that period, just didn't cook. And I remember as children, we ate a lot of packet food at that period, and I ate an awful lot of spaghetti hoops, and I can't eat them now. But what she did was she lightened the load in part of her life to give herself the energy and the willpower to do the study, because she needed to come home from dealing with us and start studying at night, was what she was doing. So what I would say to you is that if you have an issue around willpower, then think about where you can lighten the load elsewhere to give yourself willpower. Think about how you can self-motivate, so break your goal down and give yourself pats on the back. The final point I want to make on willpower is a quote from Kennedy, the American president, when he was announcing the space program and the plan within 10 years to land a man, as it was in a man, but now we would hope he would say a man or woman, on the moon. And what he said in his speech was that this goal was not a goal because it was easy, it was a goal because it was hard. And I think that's the point he recognized. And I think if you are a self-motivator or wants to become a self-motivator, you need to recognize the goals that are hard goals are the ones you want to achieve, because those are the ones through which you grow. Those are the ones through which you develop justifiable self-pride. So don't stop in front of a goal like weight loss and say it's too hard. Do it because it's hard, okay? So that's what I'd say about number 4. Let me just go to number 5. I think number 5 is about portion control. So this is the last sort of challenge or eating habit that is going to cause issues around weight loss, and that is people who have difficulty around portion control. People who say, I have a big appetite. I'll give you another story here. One of my brother-in-laws, I have a number of them, is a little bit plump. He likes his food, and he came to stay with us, and my husband isn't a regular eater. He gets caught up in what he's doing and he forgets to eat, and he doesn't realise people around him need to eat. And it always involves me saying, have you made sure, because he's in construction, have you made sure the guys that you're working with have eaten? And he'll go, oh, no, they don't need to eat. And I'll say, yes, they do. But my brother-in-law in particular came to stay with us, and he was working with my husband. And I said to my husband, are you going to make sure there's food in for dinner? Check out the fact, I didn't say I'm going to cook, because I've got other things I need to do. But I did say to my husband, have you made sure there's food in for dinner? And he said, oh, don't worry. My brother doesn't eat in the evening. And I went, really? And he said, oh no, they don't eat. And I said, look, he's not the shape he is, which is fairly plump, through not eating in the evening. He's the shape he is through eating in the evening and probably most of the day. So his shape betrays his diet type, which is he has an issue with portion control and eating just too much, not necessarily the wrong food, just far too much. So when it comes to your own body type and your own recognition of your issues, are you the sort of person who is able to stop eating, or are you the sort of person who just needs a very large plate of food? Now, that's not a criticism. If you are the sort of person who says I have a large appetite, that's fine, but you need to recognise that fact, and you need to alter the constitution of the food on your plate. We're talking to Maia about this. The important thing here is to make sure that where your volume is coming from is not from the foods which will contribute to either weight staying on or weight actually piling on. And that means you need to eat a really clean diet. You need to make sure that you're not eating refined carbohydrate in particular and the wrong type of fat, particularly trans fat. That means you really do need to take out foods which are pre-packaged, things like pastries, white bread, fried food, everything which is not going to actually help you to stay lean. If you want a big plate of food, great, but make sure that the majority of that is made up of vegetables and salad. Then you can have a big plate of food. One of the interesting things Maia says about soup, and I'll put the link up here to the book that we've got on soup and salads, is soup is interesting because the body treats soup as volume. If you were to drink a glass of water and to have a salad, you'd be probably hungry within an hour unless that salad had protein in. However, if you take those same vegetables and put them with water in a soup, the body treats that as a single food and therefore treats it as volume. So you feel much less hungry if you eat soup. So if you have, you need to eat a lot of food, then really I recommend that you add soup to your diet if you're not eating it already. It's a fantastic way to lean up without feeling denied. You know, the ethos of all of the books that in our series is not to starve yourself, not to go to three juices a day, any of that meal replacement rubbish. Eat proper food, recognize your diet type, make sure that you aren't starving, make sure you don't feel denied, because this is also about being able to stay lean. You know, this isn't about dropping weight and then going, I've done that now I'll go back to other eating. It's about trying to incorporate some of these habits in your eating habits going forward. So, recognizing what type of diet type or eating type you are is really, really important, and finding strategies that allow you to recognize that, acknowledge that, see the benefits of that, but also take weight off and stay lean is really, really important. So those are the 5 types of dieter which Maia and I discussed. All 5 types will benefit from the regime that Maia uses in her London weight loss clinics. Maia is a nutritionist who specialises in weight loss. She has 5 clinics in London, and she has given us her programs, so her recipes and her approach, that we've then written into a series of books. So there are books on breakfast, soups and salads, brown bag lunches, dinner and TV dinner, and there's also a free book on our website which is the sweet treat one. And so we put these into books. They're currently on Amazon, you can get them now. They are a really good set of recipes which are proper food, but they will help you drop weight. So do try them. They're only 99p at the moment. I think they made them, there's a period where they're going to be free. So just whatever time you look at these videos, just check them out on Amazon and check. But even at 99p or 99 cents, they're hardly going to break the bank. They're a great way to look to maybe supplement your current regime. If you're new to weight loss, they're a great start. If you are experienced at weight loss, they might give you some additional ideas. If you are eating clean but not being able to drop weight, if you don't know why, again, have a look at the books, because we talk in the books about how you structure a clean eating regime to lose weight, because clean eating does not mean necessarily lean eating, which is why the books are subtitled Eating Clean but Keep It Lean. So if you want to find the books, the link will be in the notes. I'm going to put a message up on the screen with the details, but you can also just search Amazon. If you put in Maia Lloyd, M-A-I-A Lloyd, weight loss onto Amazon, the books will come up. I really encourage you to have a look at those so that you can be in the best shape you want to be this summer. Really the best of luck. If you have any questions for me about this video, any comments for me, first of all, give me this for the video. It's always great to have some feedback. If you like the video, please share it. Please add your comments. If you'd like to speak to me direct about anything, then you can easily just email me. I'm on hello@3pspublishing.com. That's hello at 3THREEPS publishing.com, and I will come back to you. It's always great to hear from you. Also, I do periodically do videos where I answer particular questions, so you might find that I end up doing a video about your question. So it's been a pleasure. It's always a privilege. I appreciate you're busy, so it's great to have you. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Bye.